How many wants to change what their vote is here? Anyone see more? Okay, what did you see this time? Ah, very good. So you missed those 3 at the beginning, and we'll talk about that. Anyone else want to change their vote? Anyone else see by now 13? Okay, well, first of all, I can do this with a crowd of 6. I can do this with a crowd of 200, and this will always happen. You're all looking at the same thing. We saw 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. You're all looking at this, and you're still not seeing that there's 13 up here. So let me show you what happened here. First of all, how many of you saw the one up here? Okay, so that's 1. There's 2. There's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So how many of you missed the one on the very top? Okay. How many of you missed the title? That's so many people, when I say, you said, is it on the whole screen? People will go directly to the sentence and forget everything else that's on the screen. How many of you missed the ofs? Okay. Why did you miss of?
It's one of those propositions.
Okay. It is. It's one of those propositions. But when you go ahead.
I missed the last of because I was looking at the F and the F in the front of the letters.
Okay.
The words. I wasn't looking for the F at the end.
Okay. It was at the end. It's a small word. But the real reality is, if I say of, what do you hear? You hear a V. Your brain skipped right over it because you didn't have the F. Okay? So my challenge to you, and as a business coach, I am going to challenge, I push, I try to hold people accountable, but really my whole goal is to try to get my business owners to get their business to the next level. It's really about growth is kind of where I focus. And so often, why we don't get to where we want to get to, why we might miss all of those minutes in a day is because of this. There's all those hidden F's, you're too close to it and you don't see it. So that's kind of what we're going to try to do tonight, is really help you uncover some hidden F's around time that you might just get something back. And hopefully in the process we give you a little bit of inspiration. I can't possibly do 3 hours in 30 minutes. So, but I do take a very structured approach to time management, which is what a lot of people don't do. Because first of all, let me ask you the question. Why is time so hard to manage? Why is time so hard to manage? Interruptions, okay.
Without proper planning, or a lot of people don't set their goals ahead of time.
Ah, how many of you have goals? Okay. How many of you have personal goals? How many of you have a business or work and have business? Okay, great. We have a lot of hands here. I'm going to be talking about goals because it is one of the first steps in really helping you focus your time and make sure you're actually doing what is most important to your life. Okay? And I am talking about life. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about big rocks. But why else is time so hard to manage? Yes?
For me, it's hard to prioritize.
Why?
First of all, my immediate attention goes to family because that's what I did for most of the time when the kids were growing up. They were first priority. So there may be things that I do for them that aren't as important as the things that I need to do for my business in the scheme of things, but I feel more responsible.
For that, okay. But I'm going to come back to you and say when I start giving you the overview on big rocks, that's how you do start prioritizing. And for women, you've got family, most of you are working, you've got extracurricular activities, you've got kids, and trying to figure out where you're going to focus all your time is extremely difficult, very hard. So the prioritization piece is important, but if you get up every morning, I keep talking about big rocks, I have to be careful how I use that too, especially when I'm in with the so it's like, but when you get up in the morning and you understand what those big rocks are, I'm telling you, it will help you. And I'm going to do a demonstration so you kind of understand that. So Are you busy or are you productive? Okay, that's the other thing. Now, I fall into this a lot. A lot of people I'm so busy, I have all this activity, I'm doing this. But activity does not necessarily, you may be very busy, but it does not necessarily mean that what you're doing is productive. Now, I'm also a firm believer that you need to have some time where it's not just focused on productivity, but it's focused on relaxing. And what if you have vacation? And so I'll throw this out and say to you, think about what you do 2 days before you have to leave for a week or a week and a half vacation. What you get done and what you do in those 2 days before you leave for vacation, you automatically know how to prioritize. I'm telling you, you get everything done that you have to get done before you leave. So think about that. And it seems like we don't have any problem then prioritizing. You've got off your plate generally what you need to do. So it's pretty amazing how priorities all of a sudden start falling into place. And it's very easy. It's just we get so overwhelmed, we have so many things going, we're not thinking about this. And a lot of times we might go to just what we like to do and all of that type of thing. So that's, first of all, are you productive? A few questions. If you got sick and you could only work 2 hours a day, what would you do? So if you were ready to go on vacation and you had to leave, how would you prioritize the things you have to get done? So sometimes putting that, what I call reactive focus to yourself, will help you really understand what's important, what do I really have to get done. So how do you think you get good at time management? Okay, practice. What was that?
Hire you.
That's just a tiny piece of what we do. But I will tell you, it's funny because when I go into most small businesses, it's usually time, team, money. But most of my business owners will say, I just don't want to work 80 hours a week anymore. Help me get out of the business a little bit and still keep it growing and profitable and that type of thing. So we do spend, I'm not going to give you all of the tools that I give to them because we don't have time, but there's a whole lot of ways to really determine what's important, what to get off your plate, what you can turn over to someone else. They're more related to business. Because so many business owners, how many of you are business owners? We actually have quite a few here. You would know as a business owner, it's hard to let go. And so, you're doing so many things. Maybe I didn't realize we would have this many business owners. It's so hard to let go that I actually have a 9 blocker that helps you understand the things that are most important to the business and require the skill level you have, and what isn't requiring your skill level, and those are the ones you either outsource or get off your plate. And it's a pretty impactful, exercise to do. But it is really what you have to do. I saw peak performance is all about skill, and in order to get good at it, you have to practice it. And then the other part is the mindset. And so much of your mind keeps you, just those hidden F's you were skipping over, you didn't see them. Your mindset is what prevents you from kind of really moving forward and doing what you need to do with respect to that time. However, I have to tell you, there is no silver bullet. There is no silver bullet to managing time. So everyone says, oh, just help me get 100 hours back. It really is disciplined, it's focus, and it's practice. So, I'm hoping that you guys will walk away tonight with at least one thing that will help you I usually say at any seminar, if you just get one thing, that's really good, one thing that you're going to implement. And at the end, I'm going to ask you to put on the front, what are your key learnings and what is the one thing that you will change after you leave here tonight? And if I can get you to just do that one thing, we were very, very successful. So the other thing I want you to look at is, the first thing you have to do is assess the problem. Now, I do what's called a DISC profile. Has any of you ever heard of a DISC profile? DISC profile is like a personality profile, and you're going to see some numbers up here, but a personality profile really helps you understand you and your basic behavior and kind of what drives you a little bit. It's not a personality, but it is about your behavior. And depending on what you are, and what type of DISC profile you are, you're going to have a variety of different, what I call time wasters, that you're going to have a tendency to go towards. And there are basically 20 time wasters. They're from Dan Kennedy's book, No BS Time Truths. And I put them up here. You have them in your workbook. So I want you all to turn to your workbook. That's this one. And there's questions in here you can leave with, you can answer. And there's top 25 time wasters, or top 20 time wasters. I want you to circle 3 to 5 of what you think are your number one time wasters. It's like this page. Okay, so who wants to give me one? Okay.
Telephone and email interruptions.
Telephone and email interruptions. Okay, why do you allow telephone or email to interrupt you?
The immediate response society.
Okay, that's that reactive. First of all, we all love, whether you realize it or not, doesn't matter. By the way, the S, the C, the D, and the I indicates if you were a D in a disc, and I don't have time to go into all of that, that would be, you would be more than likely to have this as one of your kind of time wasters. But telephone interruptions and email, you all have 100% control of, okay? It is my absolute weakest. How many of you have the little ding that a new email just popped in? Okay, so I finally turned mine off because as soon as bam, I was right there like, okay, you need to understand multitasking is actually not a good time management tool. It is proven that every time you jump from one thing to another thing, you are wasting, every time you have to go back to that thing you were working on, you are adding immense amount of time. They've done time studies where they will say, depending on the task you're working on, you will need to add another 5 to 15 minutes to get back to what you're doing. So every time you pick up a telephone, if you're in the middle of something, every time you stop to go do that email, you are wasting a ton of time. So how do you manage then? Let's talk about emails. How could you manage emails? Okay.
I actually just read because I was trying to find an answer to that, and I found this great article on LinkedIn about what CIOs or just business owners started doing, and it's dedicating a certain chunk of time in the morning or towards the end of your day. I mean, I haven't mastered it yet, but it's like a lot of CIOs now are business owners. They'll dedicate 2 hours in the morning and then 2 hours or so like at a different point of the time of the day.
Okay.
So instead of doing it like all day long.
Now, first of all, you can also have a message sent. I check my emails in the morning and towards the end of the day. So you're giving everyone an alert and letting them know that you will get back to them in a certain period of time. Definitely plan when you're going to do it, either at the beginning of the day or at the end of the day. I try to do mine first thing. I usually am up very early, get to my 5:30, clear out anything that came in the evening, and then try to do everything at the end. Now, we have phones, so throughout the day, there's easy ways that you can at least respond to people. Like I will always try to be very responsive. Who's ever shaking your head? I have reactive. I got to let people know. But I'll say, hey, I'm out of the office, but I'll get to you when I get back to the office at around this time. So then I feel like I'm at least letting people know. So use certainly our cell phones help a lot, but do not feel compelled to stop. If you're in the office, you cannot do it. You're wasting a ton of time. So very good tip on terms of how to manage. Turn off the ding. course, I turned mine off, and now they slide in down at the bottom there. So it's like, oh, I want to talk to that person. So it's very hard for me to control this. This is definite, and high Ds will really have problems with this because we are very focused on task, so we want to get it done. Now, we spend a lot of time, in our session, we sometimes break into groups and have people actually come up with different ways to manage some of the higher end. So let's take one more, and we'll go, yes?
Inability to say no.
Inability to say no. Women, the study has shown, have way more difficulty saying no than most men, both in a business setting and in a family setting. We have this guilt complex that just feels like we have to do it all. So I actually attached to your list, you have 20 ways to say no, okay? That I provided for you. And by the way, really take your time, when you leave here to go through this, because there are actually some really good suggestions on how you can say no and not be rude about it. Now, it depends on your DISC profile. If you are a high S and some Cs and even some Is, you will have difficulty saying no because you just don't want to. You want to please people. You don't want to have to say no. So there's a variety of ways on here that will tell you, okay, how do I say no? Now, if you're Ds, if you're a high D, you don't have a problem. You'll just say no. I don't have time to talk to you right now, so get out of my office. I'm exaggerating, but So again, I come back to you and say, understand you. We were talking about at the beginning. It is all about us. It is all about understanding you, understanding and being aware of kind of where your weaknesses and then where your strengths are. And I think if you go through this, you will at least find 2 or 3 suggestions on how to say no that you could say, I could actually do that and maybe feel comfortable doing that, okay? So, and again, this is definitely more of an issue with women than it is with most men. I don't want to generalize, but if you do study and you study that. You had a question?
No, I agree that I think it's doing it and becoming comfortable with it. When I did it the one time, my male counterpart acted a little weird about it. So I think
How do you mean weird?
was upset about it, and I don't know. So I think it's doing it and then feeling comfortable with standing in that. That's okay. So what you're saying is being comfortable with it.
Yes.
So
And
saying,
you just have to get, and again, I'm all for an open door policy too. I'm not one, a lot of people, and it's fine to close your door if you really don't want interrupted. But I feel like, you should be able to, if someone interrupts and said, hey, I'm right in the middle of something. I do want to talk to you. Can we wait till 4 o'clock this afternoon? I really have something to get done. If you just practice doing that, now that's kind of in a work setting. But even saying no to your kids, you can do that. You really, really can. It's just feeling empowered enough to say no. And so hopefully this will help you a little bit in terms of what you can do. Now here is what I call my toolbox. We're not going to go through all of these. If you attend the full session, I actually go through all of these tools and really give you what I call a real toolbox. We talked about time wasters. That's just a very small piece of managing time. You really need tools to better understand your time and what you do. So I am going to actually, first of all, you have to define what is on your plate. We all have plates, and there's only so much that can fit on that. And most of us pile it on until it's fallen off, and then we stress ourselves out, and then, So you do need to define your plate, and I'm seeing I don't know if I even kept this in here. Yes, this is it. Okay, so since we have so many business owners, this is called the 9 blocker. The importance, and I'm going to use it in a business setting. So you write down everything. I say do a 2-week time study. And I usually, if you attend, I actually have the time study sheets you can use. You're going to be shocked at how you spend your time. But do 2 weeks. And then you start breaking it into tasks that you do or categories of tasks. And what you do is start putting it on this 9 blocker, which has related to how important is this to the business And what is the skill level required? High, medium, or low? High, medium, or low importance. Obviously, everything that's up here as a business owner or whatever is where you should be focusing. Down here is where you start eliminating, delegating, and in some cases stop doing. But it really helps you kind of get your tasks organized and understand what's important as it relates to the business. I did this with an entire executive team. They didn't have enough time. They were so busy. So the whole team did this. And at the end, they all came in with their tasks that were down in this area. And what do you think we did? Pardon? Yep, we put together a job description that included all the tasks that were down lower skill level, lower importance to the business, came up with a fabulous job description, hired someone, brought them in. They took all that off their plate, so they were all much more focused on the important parts of the tasks. So as a business owner, this is a tool, but you really have to do a good time study, and that's a pain in the butt. But you just have to carry it with you. You can use your phone. For me, I just take a sheet. I try to do this like about every year, and just take a sheet and kind of track my time. And you're going to find out where you waste time. You're going to find out how you make excuses that you're busy and it's not really stuff you need. So it's pretty impactful. And I'm going to do one other thing. Okay, so here, this is in your worksheet. I think it's on the last page. I want you to put together how many hours a week you work. Just doing on average. Okay, this is on your worksheet where you did this. It's on the next page. So put down how many hours you work. Does everyone have this?
On page 3 of the PowerPoint?
Yeah, no, not the PowerPoint. It's on the workbook. Right behind the time wasters that you just circled. Number 6, managing your plate. Does everyone see it? It looks like this. It looks exactly like the slide. So just write down how many hours do you work a week. Do an average week. We're just going to do an average. How many hours you actually work. How many hours you sleep. On average. Doesn't count the insomnia when you wake up in the middle of the night, which it seems like, again, is a woman problem. and just how many hours do you sleep, or are you in that bed at night? And then how many hours a week to do your personal chores, your shopping, taking care of kids, dropping kids off, things that you have to do from a personal perspective. Add those up. And subtract those from 168. Okay, who wants to tell me their number? What's your number?
I don't want to, but I have 83 hours.
All right, way to go. She's got 83 hours. That's over 3.
That's a whole new, really great business.
Okay, how many had more than 83? I'm glad I picked you.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, how many, give me some more numbers. How many did you have, Robin? 49. So she's got close to 2 full days of time that isn't devoted to the things you need to do. Did anyone have a negative? Oh, good. I always get someone that has negatives. It's like, I hope she's like, okay. So here's my point. This basically will show you how much time you actually have to do other things or to do things you enjoy and all of that. Yet we're all sitting here saying we don't have any time. We all have plenty of time. It's just how do we choose to use it, and what are we doing? What do you think you're doing with it? Huh?
Now we feel guilty.
No. Now you have to just figure out where am I wasting my time, or what aren't I doing, or what can I stop doing so I can grab more of this time back. But this is a pretty neat exercise when you do it, because it does make you sit there and say, wow, I know I sit down and watch TV, but I didn't know, So there's plenty of time out there. It's now the most important thing is for you to determine, okay, what are the priorities? And that's where you need to define your big rocks. So I might need someone to give me a table so you can all see this. So this is called a jar of big rocks. Again, I always have to be careful. And I usually do a mixed session, so it's like, okay. Would everyone agree that I filled this with big rocks, just past the line of being full? Okay, so we've got all of our big rocks in there. Is there anything more big rocks I can get in that full line? Okay, is there anything what else can I put in here? Can I get some more? Can I fill this up more?
Pebbles.
Okay, you've seen this?
No.
Okay, very good. So here's a bunch of pebbles. Oops. Let me fill that in there. Wow, we got them all in. Okay, I could probably get some more in there, right? What else could I get in there? Someone saw this.
No, I didn't.
Oh, you're pretty good. Okay, so we could put sand in here. So let's fill up. Whole jar. Okay. I could probably get a little bit more sand in there. What else could I get in there? Okay, I knew someone has seen this. Usually someone has seen this. So, okay. So now I could do, and I could fill that, and once it settles, it's all there, okay? So I call this analogy is you have got to know your big rocks, because if we had not put those big rocks in, okay, and what's going to get this whole jar is going to get filled with pebbles and sand. And once it's filled with pebbles and sand, you're never getting your big rocks in. I always have to laugh, but you are not going to. So do you know what your big rocks are? Do you know what's most important to your life? Do you really know what's most important to your business? Because if you are not, and you do not wake up every morning understanding what you need to put into that jar first, you're going to be playing with a lot of pebbles and sand. Okay? So the concept behind goals and goal setting and all of that is so important. It's why every self-help book is written, every business book that's written, everything out there tells you to focus on your goals. And it is the hardest thing for most people to do. In fact, wow, I don't know what happened there, how we got all the way back. In fact, you will find that even when we study business owners, up to 70 to 80% really do not have goals that they stay focused on. So let me get to, sorry about that. So so you absolutely need to understand. Someone was saying, what are my priorities? Well, certainly you're going to put your kids in here as one of those big rocks. But if I say to most people, what are your most important things and what do you define them as? A lot of people really can't tell. So then I say, so then how do you know what you're going to spend time on today is your most important priority? And all you need to do is define that from a high level, and you will automatically start doing activities in that related to that, okay? There was a time, and by the way, there's something in your brain called a reticular activating system. It's in the back of your brain, and it truly is there, and it's kind of your compass to your brain. And again, it goes back to why all of the books that are written, all the self-help books, the business books say set goals. Your brain latches into that and will start guiding you in the direction that you need to go with that goal. Okay, so it really, I used an example of I got a white car. Before I had a white car, didn't notice white cars. I got a white car and what happened? There's a white car in every corner because my brain was now very aware of it and had zeroed into it. It's kind of like a compass. That's what a goal will do. There was a Harvard study done. It was for over a 25-year period with 1,000 people. And at the end of that study, 3% of the people had 98% of the wealth. Now, first of all, I'm not going to tell you that wealth is the only indication of success. That's just what they used in terms of, how they were categorizing this. What do you think those 3% did differently than anyone else? No, the other people had goals. Okay, they wrote their goals down. It's up there. But they also did something else.
Just from a book that I'm reading, they visualized it or thought about it?
Very close. They looked at them every day. Okay, they looked at them every day. So every single day they got up and I just jump out of bed. I have one personal goal and one business goal, and it's in number format. I just jump out of bed and say, those two things. That's it. That's my focus for the day. But whatever it is that you need to get the focus, and the focus will help you start driving what you need to have as priorities. Okay. Now, I have what's called a default calendar. We would go through all this. We're not going to spend, the time right here, but then a default calendar is actually how you plan out your day. So you were talking about putting X amount of time in the morning for emails. Right now, what do your calendars look like? What do you put on your calendars? I'm going to mention default, but I'm not going into it a whole lot. And the session, we actually show you how to set up a default.
Definitive appointments.
Okay, definitive appointments. Do you put anything else on?
I put my workout time, my prayer time, family time. I mean, my calendar is my world.
Okay.
So I put everything into that I need to do that day.
That's more of a default calendar. A default means what do you default back to? So when you're building your schedule, you actually put in the priorities that you need to be working on, not just the time. You're all going to have a certain amount of time that you have to do things at work, and those are on your calendar. And I always say, if you get the last piece of what we're going to talk about is this. What you try to do is get to the bullseye. That bullseye is not urgent, but important. It's your big rocks. Goal is to get 25% of your time devoted to what I call non-urgent but important tasks. Whoever said it, we love to be in a reactive environment. It is very easy to manage in a reactive environment. Why? Why? You were shaking. Oh, I can't see your name in the green. You're shaking your head. Pat.
Well, just some of my customers just, I hate that message that says, just call me. I need to hear from you right away. And it's like, if you could only leave the message, I could respond back with the answer. And my message says that. But it's that kind of thing, so you feel like you have to call them back in that immediate response.
Okay, but why is it also easy to manage in a reactive environment? You don't have to think about what you have to do. Whatever is flying at you is what you do. Generally, it's very energizing. I'm a high D. I want that. I get energy from that. I like it. I love to be in a reactive environment. Okay, and I don't have to think about it. I can just, I have to do this. Now I have to do this. Now I have to do this. And what happens is you never get to urgent but not important, not urgent and important things. You never get there. So if you look, the last sheet I gave you, again, I'm kind of jumping around, but I'm trying to give you things that I think will be helpful for you. There's a sheet that is, I'm trying to find it, there. It's this sheet, right here. That put into the format where it actually tells you what is urgent and important. crisis, pressing problems, deadline driven, your customer setting your deadline for you, projects, meetings, preparation, anything that comes in that you think immediately has to be taken care of that day. Most people thrive and love reactive environments. You don't have to plan. You just do what happens to be there when you walk in that morning. Does that make sense? Not urgent but important is prep, putting in prevention, planning, relationship building, things that you actually have to think about and do, but there's nothing kicking you in the butt telling you to do it. Nothing kicking in you in the butt telling you you have to do it. That's why planning, which is so important, goal setting, which is so important, but nothing's kicking you, hitting your head. Nothing telling you you have to do it. So, and then it goes through what's important and not urgent and not important, which again are interruptions. You need to manage and control your interruptions. Does that make sense? And you can do it. You are so my last thought for you is you are the only one that can control your time. And you have 100% control of your time most of the time. You just need to take it. And start with understanding what your big rocks are so you're not playing with pebbles and sand. So that's a quick overview of our time management seminar. I hope you're walking away. But on the front, as a good coach, I have to say, what were the 1 or 2 key learnings, and what's the one thing that you're actually going to implement as a result of this seminar, or this quick little overview on time management, okay? So fill that out in the front, and thank you very much.